carry a song of joy in your heart, and may we all be one. Thank you, and good night.
Got there, what we were engaging in at that time was a primary ground conflict with two indigenous species, one reptoid, one insectoid, or what we sometimes call mantids, right? Of the three reptilian species that I am the most visually familiar with, terrestrial reptiles that are from planet Earth. We do have an indigenous species here on planet Earth. They live underground. We do have them here. And draconian reptiles and indigenous Martian reptiles. So those are the three species that I'm visually familiar with, and I can say that they're very distinctly different.
There are a wide range of different types of reptilian beings that are involved with this Draco Alliance, but there are also some insectoid type beings that are involved in this alliance, and some very strange Nordic type beings. There's been a little bit of information that they're a conquered race that was forced into servitude, but that are also a part of this federation. Many different types. Yes, they're bipedal. They have different types of reptilian beings, some that are quite short in the 4.5 to 5 feet tall that look very much like grays. They have reptilians that are of like the Draco type that are, they range from 9, 14 feet plus tall. And there's a whole range of them. They have different castes within their system. They have like a warrior caste. They have engineers, scientists, almost like a hive. And then they have their royalty up at the top that control and direct everything.
A lot of it has to do with snouts, snout size, snout shape, head size, head shape, neck size, neck shape. We noticed at least a 3-caste system that were involved, but those were just the ones that we observed in battlefield scenarios and what we understood sort of operating as their officer corps, so forth, and the ruling class and so forth. We think in our intelligence files that we've got 4 main draconian castes. You have a ruling class, a officer administration class, a military officer class, and then essentially a subjugated, worker caste. And those are all genetically engineered to be in that caste and to be very, very separate. And one step above the other is very much more psionically powerful than the one underneath it. And they're engineered to be that way, to have that separation. Yeah, more crocodile-y, gargoyle-y, alligator, kind of like they ooze creepiness. I don't know what else to say. I love dark corruptedness, that they just do kind of ooze a weird, dark, creepy, corrupted thing from them. They're weird, very bizarre.
Well, I met, unfortunately, a Draco Royal, and it's something that I've refused to repeat, and so has Lieutenant Colonel Gonzalez. This one was around the 14-foot range, which is incredibly tall. They're incredibly muscular, very reptile looking, had vestigial wings and a vestigial short tail. The wings at one time would have been able to support them in flight, but now they're kind of a remnant of what I was able to see, unless they were triple folded in a way to where they could have opened up wide. I mean, it just looked like vestigial wings. Yeah, it was not wearing clothing. The weight, I would say, yes, that's probably close. 5 feet for the shoulder span. I don't know if that's even enough. Yeah, very broad, very intimidating. There's another type that they call, that they say people describe as red, but it's a real weird brown that makes it look red. that also has wings. They're smaller and they're less muscular. No, it's just, it's in proportion to its skull as you would picture a reptile. Well, it depends on which ones you're talking about. Yeah, they have nostrils that will sink in and go up, and then there's some of them that have sort of a nose that goes up, kind of like a little snout.
For instance, terrestrial reptiles tend to be of one of two types, which is either a taller, thinner, longer thinned, longer snouted type reptile. They tend to be way taller and way sort of spindlier fingers and hands. And then they have a shorter variety, a shorter cast, which is stockier, shorter, smaller, much flatter snout and nose, and much tinier hands, and almost, I would even say, a harder texture skin that would maybe even be almost like almost a cross between a lizard and a tortoise. Just not the same kind of soft, scaly skin, but that what really becomes like this harder, like when you could slap them on, you'd be like, oh wow, that's like you got a jacket on there that you're. But again, it was like a harder skin texture, and I think it has a lot to do with what they do. They tend to be a working cast. They tend to be physical and need to have that sort of that physical protection. Between about 5.5, 6.5, 7 feet tall. Yeah, I mean, I've seen them as sort of about this tall, and I've seen them as about, that tall. Both times it was psionic communication, no verbal communication whatsoever. It was all psionic thought form communication in both cases.
There's been dozens and dozens of different beings, and everything from insectoid type beings that we've heard described that are similar to grays, beings that look almost like us. There were some beings that were very human looking. They looked shorter than us, kind of Mediterranean or Greek looking, but were very dense. They were heavier than us, stronger than us, but they looked like us. They could pretty much, if you weren't paying attention, like most people don't pay attention to their surroundings, they could walk around and somewhat blend in on the streets. There are quite a few races that look very similar to us. And there are quite a few races out there that have, there's every skin shade you can imagine, all the different skin shades you can imagine, from the greens to the purples, pastels.
I would say that their main distinction is their skin patterns, their texture patterns on their skin, which is really amazing. I mean, if you think of some of the most varied colors and textures that like rock reptiles and rock lizards and stuff can sort of have, that was really a lot of what you saw. They had a lot of their individualized personality had a lot to do with how their patterns came out when they were born and so forth. And it wasn't like racial or, oh, you're one of those or you're one of those. It was just very much like that's like your eye color or something that's just very much distinct about who you are, if your particular pattern. So they had really beautiful patterns and very intelligent, definitely more metaphysical and more psionic and less aggressive, but you didn't want to start a fight with them either because they'd kick your butt.
Up until recently, there were several groups that were allied with ancient Earth breakaway civilizations, something we haven't talked about. There, in the secret space program, there were groups that we were running into over and over that were very, very highly advanced and were saying that they were from this star system and that star system. And finally, we found out that they were not being truthful with us. And when the jig was up, they came clean and admitted they were from the Earth. They consider themselves the original humans from Earth, and they consider us some mixed race on the surface. Well, there are some that are our height, that have pale skin but Caucasianist, Norwegian kind of looking. Yeah, they have white hair. And and within their group, there are even people that have blonde hair, brown hair, black hair. And there are other groups from ancient breakaway civilizations that are similar to Asians, but not exactly anatomically, don't exactly anatomically match what we would picture as Asian. They're somewhat genetically removed, but they are very much from here. And they basically said they've been telling us for thousands of years that they're gods, so that we would look to the stars instead of below our feet. And they've been telling people on the surface and people in the secret space program that they are non-terrestrials from different star clusters and systems. They've been telling them that for operational security, so we don't go looking for them down in their cities and bases down below the earth.
Some of them learn to speak English, and interestingly enough, a lot of reptiles don't like it when you talk their language because we talk it really bad. It really offends them to have to listen to us try and talk their language. So most of the time they would rather, if it's going to be a talky thing, they'd rather try and talk to us than rather have us try and learn and speak their language, because we just say it so wrong. And it's the tongue and the palate and everything. So you have a mammalian tongue and a mammalian palate, and so no, you cannot make perfect, pronunciation and enunciation of reptilian words. I would say that the terrestrial reptiles is probably more clicky than guttural. The indigenous reptiles of Mars is more guttural than clicky. The draconian language is just aggressive and angry. I mean, hard. I mean, it's this very angry, aggressive. And it's kind of like that. They really project with this angry, authoritative, kind of angry dialect. I would say that the indigenous reptiles would be distinctively by saying they had a smaller, rounded snout. Rounded, absolutely. And they use a lot of technology, a lot of augmentations, a lot of cybernization, a lot of weird. I mean, I've seen them like practically like cybernetically insert people into the machines that they use, into the weapons that they use. And, oh yeah, they don't like other people having free will.
And at night when I look at the stars, I think of my elders, my ancestors. My grandfather said, I hope that I conducted my life in such a manner that you yourself would choose to be a human being and encourage and make a stand for our unborn of all nationalities.